Welcome to another exercise for the workbook statistics, this time focusing on the topic of moving averages. So to start with the exercise, we have here during a normal day, 9 trains frequent a particular line. For 3 days, the duration of the trips is recorded. And we get here the 9 different trains and the 3 days for which we record them, or record their duration of traveling. Our question or task now, calculate the centered 3 and 5 day moving averages of the durations. Well, for this, we're simply going to add up either the first or the 3 observations here, for example, then assign the average of those 3 values to the middle one. That's what the centered actually means. Take first 3, assign to the second. Take the next 3, assign to the middle one, which is the 3. And doing the same thing for 5. Well, the result looks like this. So for each day, I have these values. And what we can see if we look closely, well, first off, we're missing the first and last observation for the 3 train averages. And we're missing the first 2 and last 2 observations for the 5 train averages. Well, that's always the case. That's the downside to working with moving averages. You always lose observations. And that's you lose 1 observation less than the days or observations you use for averaging. So if I'm doing a 3 observation average, I'm losing 2. If I'm using a 5 observation average, I'm losing 4 observations. That's the one thing to note. The other thing to note is that if I'm actually increasing the period I use for averaging, the closer all these values get to each other. And that's always the case. I'm smoothing a bit more. Well, the most smoothing you can do is you just calculate one value, but this even works in this case. So I always have an upside and a downside. I'm losing observations, and increasingly more observations if I aggregate more, if I consider more observations. But on the other hand, for example, if I consider this one, here values with 32, 34 something, they're all with 33, I'm going to average or smooth them much more if I consider more values. So I always would say make this dependent on how much observations you have. If you have a situation where, for example, you're using daily data or even hourly data with stock market prices or something like this, you can afford to lose like 4 observations if you have like 3,000 already or even more. If you have a very limited number, for example, like this here for market research, I would go with like 3 at maximum 5, because here every observation counts. But well, in the end, that's up to you. You have to weigh which is more important to you, observations or smoothing. And well, that's basically everything I could mention to this exercise. So I hope you enjoyed it. I say goodbye and see you next time.